GMA. And we want to start with the administration's offer to buy with a mass buyout to federal employees out there. How many do you hope will take it? And by what percentage does the president want to downsize the federal workforce?
Well, good morning, Michael. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on the program. This is another promise made and kept by President Trump. He told the American people on the campaign trail that he was going to make our federal government more efficient and productive. And it is a fact that only 6% of the federal workforce here in Washington, D.C. actually shows up to the office. That is completely unacceptable. Middle-class Americans, our teachers, our nurses, our law enforcement officers who keep this economy working, show up to the office every single day, and President Trump expects that federal employees do the same. So his order, as presented in that memo last night, directs federal agencies to come up with a return to work policy for their agencies. And if federal bureaucrats in this city don't like that, well, guess what? They can resign from their positions, and this administration is offering them 8 months of pay. They will be paid through September just to simply resign from their positions. If 5 to 10% of the federal workforce resigns, it will save taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. And so, look, we want people to return to work. We have beautiful federal office buildings here in Washington, D.C. that American taxpayers are paying.
He expected her to crumble under live pressure, but the moment he spoke, Karoline flipped the script and left him speechless.
Well, most doctors who work in actual hospitals and medical institutions have to show up to the office. We know that employees are more productive and more efficient when they are working in an in-office environment, and that's what this administration expects, and I think that's what American taxpayers expect. Don't forget, it's the American people who are funding this government, and they deserve people who are actually showing up.
Strawn tried to sound clever, but the second he touched policy, Karoline calmly dismantled his claims like a seasoned pro.
The White House putting a freeze on federal assistance program. The federal judges put the freeze temporarily on hold, saying the government itself doesn't have the full scope of the programs that are going to be impacted. So what's your response to that?
Well, as I addressed in my first press briefing yesterday, this is a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so that the Office of Management and Budget here in the Executive Office of the President can review all federal assistance that is going out the door. Again, President Trump promised the American people he would be a good steward of their tax dollars. And what we cannot do is fund programs that run contrary to the executive orders and actions that this president has already taken. So there will be no more federal funding for DEI programs. There will be no more federal funding for the Green New Deal, which is an order from the previous administration that President Trump has rescinded. It would make no sense for American taxpayers to pay for policies that this administration is no longer.
He thought he could twist the facts about federal aid, until Karoline flipped the narrative with razor-sharp clarity.
So that's all this is, a temporary pause on federal assistance and grants so we can conduct a review of all of the money that's going out the door. And as I repeatedly stated yesterday, individual assistance such as Medicare payments, Social Security benefits, welfare, food stamps, and Medicaid assistance will not be impacted by this federal pause. So the American people should not worry if they're receiving individual assistance.
When he leaned into chaos, hoping for a media-friendly soundbite, Karoline cut through the noise and exposed the spin.
Across the country yesterday, online portals, they went down in response to this freeze action. So should that not have happened? And is that a sign of a chaotic rollout?
No, absolutely not. And I would like to address that. We were made aware of that immediately, and we amended the problem immediately. The Medicaid program is back up.
Then came the swipe at RFK Jr., parroting party lines like a good foot soldier, and Karoline made sure he paid for it.
And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., let's go to another topic. We have a lot to cover here. President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services has his confirmation hearing this morning, where his cousin, Karoline Kennedy, she's speaking out against him, calling him, quote, unqualified with dangerous and willfully misinformed views on vaccines, and that he is a predator. And what's your response to that?
I would reject those comments fiercely. RFK Jr. is widely respected. He's a great man who has dedicated his life to public service and to research. He is pro-science, and he is committed to making this country healthy again. He campaigned alongside President Trump, and they spoke that motto to tens of millions of Americans across the country who clearly believed in it. America is one of the richest yet unhealthiest countries in the world. If you look at our obesity rates, our autism rates, we should be performing far better. Our people should be much healthier. And that's all that RFK Jr. is trying to do. And so President Trump stands strongly behind him, and we look forward to watching him shine on Capitol Hill today in his confirmation hearing, just like all of the other.
Strawn got smug, tossing in a cringy McDonald's jab. But Karoline didn't blink. She buried the punchline with poise.
At McDonald's. I want to see those pictures again. All right. You know, the immigration crackdown is another topic. And if someone is caught in one of these raids, they're here with a legal status, they're a dreamer or a legally protected refugee, what's going to happen to that individual?
Well, we will deport individuals based on the laws of this country. That's all this administration is trying to do, enforce our nation's immigration laws. So if an individual is here illegally, if that means they crossed our southern border illegally, or they are overstaying their visa illegally, or they've been deported before and returned to the U.S. illegally, which we found in many instances, they will be subject to deportation. If someone is here legally, they will of course not be deported. That is not the intention of this administration.
Pulling out the usual emotional traps on immigration, he thought he'd score. Instead, Karoline hit back with cold, hard law.
The Secretary of Defense announced that General Mark Milley's security details being removed, his security clearance suspended, and the Pentagon will be looking into whether his military rank should be reduced. Is this in retaliation for General Milley speaking out against the president?
No, this is another example of President Trump not believing that public officials should be subject to security details for the rest of their lives. There is nothing preventing the individuals who President Trump has stripped the clearances of from obtaining their private security, General Milley included.
But it only seems like it's for people who have gone against him in the past. It doesn't line up. It doesn't correlate with other people who have supported him. It's people who've gone against him. So why would that not be considered kind of discrimination towards those?
No, I would reject that. I think that President Trump has the right to make these decisions. And again, he doesn't think that taxpayers should be funding security for bureaucrats and for others who have served in our government for the rest of their lives. And again, many of the people you're citing are very...
His final blunder. Defending endless perks for corrupt elites. Karoline peeled back the curtain and crushed the narrative. Strawn played media games. She played truth. And just like that, the ex-footballer got steamrolled on national TV.